Welcome to another edition of Just Facts Combat. Today, we're breaking down picks for Adesanya versus Imavov, an intriguing matchup as both fighters are on different career paths and will need to rise to the occasion. Expect them at their best. Hamdy versus Pogues breakdown. For this fight, I'm picking Hamdy to beat Pogues. While Hamdy was suspended for 2 years after testing positive for PEDs, suggesting he used more than the average cheater, his Olympic-level wrestling, combined with aggressive striking and pressure, should give Pogues trouble. Pogues showed solid takedown defense against Petersen, stuffing all but one attempt. However, he spent a lot of time controlled against the fence, especially in the early rounds. When he was taken down, he struggled to get back up, and if the takedown had come earlier in the round, he likely would have spent most of it on his back. He also showed signs of fatigue from Petersen's pressure. Hamdy, in my opinion, is a better version of Petersen, willing to press forward with his hands and possessing respectable power. Post-PEDs, his conditioning is a question mark, but his ability to apply pressure and engage in a scrap is an advantage over Pogues. Unlike Petersen, who hesitated to use his hands, Hamdy won't shy away from exchanges, forcing Pogues on the back foot. Bad optics for the judges. That said, Hamdy's cardio is a concern now that he's off PEDs. To manage it, I expect him to lean on his elite wrestling, keeping Pogues on the mat and working toward dominant positions. If Pogues defends as well as he did against Petersen, Hamdy's gas tank might fade, especially given his inactivity and post-PED status. Pogues excels at defending basic and even intermediate wrestling techniques, but Hamdy's striking pressure should create openings for takedowns. Final call: Hamdy's pressure and wrestling edge out Pogues, but cardio remains a wild card. This is a classic pressure versus counter-striker matchup between two promising prospects. Bogdan Grad is an aggressive, all-offense striker with explosive power and a solid jiu-jitsu game as a brown belt. Alexander, on the other hand, is a counter-striker who struggles when forced to lead. This tendency has already cost him fights, and I believe it will be his downfall again. Alexander hasn't fought in over a year, and his last bout ended with a brutal first-round knockout. He also continues to have trouble making weight, missing again despite having a full year to prepare. Given his repeated weight issues, a move up in weight class might be worth considering. The long layoff, combined with a tough weight cut, could leave him drained and rusty. If the fight goes long, I expect him to fade. For these reasons, I'm picking Bogdan Grad. He's been more active, is comfortable at featherweight despite his size, and has the better cardio. Both fighters have power, but Grad's pressure will create more opportunities to land big shots. Even in his fight against Petersen, Alexander could have finished if he pressed forward more and trusted his power, but his style holds him back. I see Bogdan winning by a late TKO or a dominant decision. I'd also suggest keeping an eye on the submission prop. Grad's jiu-jitsu is legit, and he's capable of wrapping up a choke just like Brito did. But overall, the pick is Bogdan Grad. In the only women's fight on this card, I expect a typical outcome for women's MMA, a decision, with only a slight chance of a finish. That could happen if Mayra Bueno can't fend off submission attempts from Jasudavicius or if she catches something from the bottom, but I doubt it. Jasudavicius wrestling should be the deciding factor. She'll likely take Bueno down and control her for most of the fight, securing a dominant decision win. Bueno is returning to flyweight after struggling to make weight and being forced up to bantamweight, where she couldn't keep up with the division's best. Now, she's dropping back down to revive her career, but she's picked a tough opponent with a bad stylistic matchup. Jasudavicius thrives as a pressure wrestler and will probably engage on the feet briefly before shooting for takedowns. Once she establishes top control, she'll wear Bueno down and frustrate her, a major factor, given Bueno's history of struggling with focus due to severe ADHD. In the end, I see Jasudavicius winning a clear decision. Terrance Mckinney is one of those fighters who can frustrate you when you watch him. He's talented, well-rounded, and has respectable power, but his fight IQ is severely lacking. He trusts his power so much that he often leaves himself wide open, either recklessly chasing a finish or gassing himself out in the process. Many of his losses were entirely preventable had he fought smarter. That said, his opponent, Damir Hadzovic, hasn't fought in nearly 3 years and is already 38 years old, giving Mckinney a significant edge. Hadzovic is a fairly standard fighter who doesn't bring anything Mckinney shouldn't be able to handle. Mckinney should win this fight comfortably, likely by TKO. Both men have poor defense, so it shouldn't be difficult for either to land, but I trust the younger, more active fighter to absorb shots better and do more damage. If Mckinney can't finish Hadzovic or at least win convincingly, the UFC should seriously consider cutting him. It would be clear he's just not built for this level. From what I've seen, Petersen has solid skills but needs significant work, especially in his striking offense and defense. His last fight highlighted this weakness, as Pogues was able to pick him apart standing. While Petersen's pressure and wrestling made the fight more competitive than the scorecard suggested, those same striking deficiencies are why I believe he'll lose this matchup. Gaziev is a well-rounded heavyweight with known cardio issues, but those only surfaced in a high-paced, 5-round fight against Rozenstruik. In a 3-rounder, he should be dangerous throughout. Petersen has shown he can push the pace and absorb shots, but Pogues, a smaller heavyweight with less power than Gaziev, landed freely. Petersen's tendency to fight with his hands down and remain hittable makes this a dangerous fight for him. Gaziev's striking is superior, and he's comfortable letting his hands go. He can also wrestle with Petersen, meaning he won't hesitate to engage. We saw Pogues, who isn't a wrestler, confidently throw hands just by using movement to stay off the cage. Gaziev won't have that same concern, allowing him to stand and trade while shutting down Petersen's takedown attempts. I expect him to punish Petersen's habit of leaving his chin exposed when closing distance, leading to a finish. Prediction: Gaziev wins by dominant TKO, likely in the 2nd or 3rd round. If Petersen can find success in the clinch and keep Gaziev honest, he might survive to another decision loss, but he won't do enough to win. This is an intriguing matchup between the heavy-handed, flat-footed Mike Davis and the rangy mobile striker Fares Ziam. I'm taking a chance on the underdog here. Davis is well-rounded with solid wrestling and jiu-jitsu, so I expect him to push for takedowns, especially since Ziam will likely give him problems at range, landing shots and escaping before Davis can respond effectively. Given Ziam's movement and striking advantage, Davis may be forced to rely on his grappling, an area where Ziam has struggled in past fights. However, since his loss to Terrance Mckinney 3 years ago, Ziam has improved his grappling by training outside of France, something more French fighters should consider if they want to compete at the highest level. We've seen what happens when this aspect is neglected, as seen with Surulgan's struggles against elite grapplers. I believe Ziam's improved takedown defense will make it difficult for Davis to impose his wrestling. Additionally, Davis's cardio has been a weakness, and the energy he'll expend trying to close the distance could wear him down. As the fight progresses, I see Ziam picking him off, taking control in the later rounds, and winning a competitive but clear decision. Final pick: Fares by decision. Whenever we see a fighter with a Nurmagomedov surname, we already know what to expect: high-level wrestling. Saeed is no exception. Wrestling is his bread and butter, and once he gets you to the ground, it's going to be a tough fight. His grappling is exceptional, and he reminds me of a mix between Islam and Khabib because he actively hunts for submissions rather than just controlling his opponents. On the other hand, most Brazilian fighters tend to struggle against strong wrestling, and Oliveira is no exception. Based on their strengths, I expect Saeed to impose his game plan early, forcing Oliveira to fight off his back. Once Oliveira finds himself on the mat and unable to get up, he'll likely rely on his jiu-jitsu, which could dictate how the fight plays out after the early striking exchanges. That said, there's always a risk. If Saeed rushes his takedowns without setting them up properly, he could get caught. Oliveira is explosive, and we've seen his deadly flying knees before, like when he knocked out Sapaj, who was dominating but mistimed a takedown and paid the price. However, I believe Saeed will be more cautious, avoiding prolonged striking exchanges since Oliveira has heavy hands. The safest path to victory is to take Oliveira down and neutralize his offense. Ultimately, I see Saeed either finding a submission or grinding out a decision. Given Oliveira's activity and danger off his back, I'm leaning toward a decision win, with Saeed controlling the fight and dishing out damage from top position. This might seem like another pressure striker versus counter striker matchup, but it's not quite that simple. Rozenstruik has been more aggressive lately, and with his power, I expect bombs to fly early. I doubt this fight goes to a decision unless Rozenstruik learned from the Volkov fight and chooses to fight off the back foot. That approach would serve him well against Pavlovich, a flat-footed boxer who struggles against mobile opponents, a common issue for many boxers. If Rozenstruik stays disciplined, this is his best path to victory. Contrary to popular belief, I think Rozenstruik carries more raw power. There's a false narrative about Pavlovich's punching power, with some even comparing him to Ngannou, which is laughable. It's not even close. However, what Pavlovich does bring is relentless volume and pressure, which Rozenstruik has struggled with in the past. Add in Pavlovich's massive reach, and this could be a tough night for Rozenstruik. That said, Rozenstruik is the more versatile striker with strong kickboxing, while Pavlovich is more predictable. But ultimately, I lean toward Pavlovich. Rozenstruik is too easy to hit in the pocket, both guys are, to be fair, but Pavlovich throws more, applies constant pressure, and will likely land first. I see Pavlovich winning by TKO, though Rozenstruik by TKO or decision could be a solid underdog play. Since his KO loss to Aspinall, Pavlovich has been more cautious, as we saw against Volkov, but he still applies pressure, just more measured than before. Pavlovich TKO is my pick, but Rozenstruik has paths to victory, and the odds might make him worth a shot. I won't lie, this is a tough fight to call, and I'm not confident picking a winner. Both have strong cases. Shara could make MVP pay for his habit of keeping his hands low, similar to how Lima did. He's the bigger, more natural middleweight and dangerous at range. On the other hand, MVP presents problems for Shara. We saw Shara get hurt against Arman when he couldn't control the distance, and MVP is more willing to press forward and dictate the pace, which could limit Shara's kicking game. That said, Shara's kicks are lightning fast, and MVP could walk into one if he's not careful. MVP's low hands make it harder for Shara to read his strikes, but also leave openings for counters. Neither fighter moves their head much, so both are hittable at closer range. If this were at welterweight, I might lean toward MVP, as he could capitalize on Shara's defensive lapses in the mid-range. But at middleweight, I favor the younger, stronger Shara. I expect a close fight, but I believe Shara can use his size and pressure to limit MVP's mobility, where he's most dangerous. I see Shara holding his ground when MVP looks to push forward, forcing him back with pressure. If Shara stays aggressive, he can control both the kicking and punching range and land enough to secure a decision. I don't expect Shara to land anything too wild, so a knockout wouldn't shock me either way, but I think he'll do enough to win a clear decision. This is a step-up fight for both men. Adesanya wants to prove he's still elite and not past his prime, while Imavov aims to show he's ready for a title run. Despite Adesanya's age and recent struggles, he performed well against DDP, nearly finishing him before getting submitted. Imavov, like Izzy, is mobile with solid power. He's also been addressing his biggest weakness, grappling, after moving his training camp outside France. That said, Adesanya's striking experience and skill level are unmatched. Strickland only beat a depleted version of him by decision, which isn't enough proof that Izzy can be consistently outstruck. This should be a close striking battle, with both having their moments. While Adesanya showed signs of slowing down and possible cardio issues in his last fight, those could be due to size, age, or rust. This fight will reveal where he truly stands. Imavov will likely try to ramp up aggression as the rounds progress, but Adesanya's ability to maintain pace over 5 rounds gives him the edge. If cardio becomes a factor, Imavov might capitalize, but he himself has shown signs of fading in deep waters. Prediction: Adesanya by decision. However, I'm not fully confident, as his last performance raised concerns. It could be rust, or it could be the beginning of his decline. Many questions will be answered in this fight.